9. Hello, welcome to week 9. We have officially passed the midway mark, wrapped up Photoshop, and are now going to be starting Illustrator this week, which is really exciting. I'm super proud of the work that you guys have done so far and the learning that you've accomplished. Getting into Adobe, those of you who have already been there and those of you who were like brand new to the software. Lots of fun stuff, lots of great ads. We wrap that up strong. I know in this kind of online environment, it can feel a little anticlimactic because you turn it in and you get a grade and that's it. But that was a process. I mean, it was a lot, and you guys have now had your first taste of working through the creative process from start to finish. And we're going to do it again. And so my expectations are going to be a little bit higher from you as far as following along with the protocols and like what I'm expecting to see from you as far as sketches and participation in the peer review and discussion boards, whether or not you want to do, online sharing in these Zooms and get feedback, and just kind of how much that helps the whole process. But exciting stuff. We are starting Illustrator, and our project for Illustrator, as most of you have probably seen by now, is going to be to create a movie poster. So in keeping with that idea and theme, I'm going to be sharing and kicking us off with some movie related creative inspiration today. I'm going to share my screen. I'll be copying a link into the chat, and decided to start us off with a little vintage inspiration with The Goonies. I don't know how many of you have seen or remember this film, but it is a fun one, a Steven Spielberg early days one, I think from the 80s. And I have like 3 different things to show you, but thought I'd kick off with the trailer. As always, while we're waiting for everyone to get here and arrive, enjoy this video, put any questions that you might have and want answered during this course or during class in the chat. Okay, here we go.
One-eyed Willie. My dad told me all about him. See, One-eyed Willie stole treasure once, and then he got into this cave, and he's been there ever since. Trapped. You guys, just what if this map can lead to One-eyed Willie's rich stuff? I'm setting booby traps. You mean booby traps? That's what I said. Booby traps. I want to go home. Don't say that! Goonies never say die! Oh my God.
From Steven Spielberg. The Goonies.
Do the trumpet shuffle. Come on! Do it!
Okay, so I don't know how many of you guys have seen that film, but it's a good one. It's a lot of fun. And this week, you guys, as the first part of the Illustrator project, are set out to find a movie that inspires you. This is a really cool website that is, I found it on that site, the site of the day, which is escaping me right now, but this won one of the awards of a site of the day, and it's a Goonies inspired website, and it's gorgeous. I'll put the link to it in the chat so you guys can check it out more if you want to, or bookmark it for later. But it is super fun. It has even the mobile app. I looked at it on my phone, and it works really well as a mobile as well as a desktop website, which is a challenge. You can see the theme of the treasure hunting and the map, but it's got like a really cool functionality, really good type solutions. It's easy to read, and it's just a lot of fun, and you can really get the look and feel of the movie from this website. It is not the official website, but just a fun like Goonies inspired Goonie tribute site So, and I love the logo and I love the typeface. So like looking at all these little details, this is something I'm so excited for this project. It's something that there's so many things to kind of pull from. Another thing, this is also Goonies. I'm going to put this in the chat. This article that you may have seen in the creative inspiration page in this week's course material had this article about a theater in Canada. And they redid a series of movie posters for like a, like a summer, I don't know if it was like a summer movie. What do you call those things? I'm totally blanking. Like a film, where they take a week and they play a whole bunch of movies in the same theme. And Tower here in Sacramento does Hayao Miyazaki one. I can't remember what they're called. Film festival, like a children's film festival. They redid all of these. Thank you, Ryan. They redid these posters, but I don't know if you guys can see this one. Let me bring it up. Can you see the Goonies poster? Big on my screen, or because I shared it on another screen. Yeah, you can see it. Thanks, Veronica. So this was the Goonies re-illustrated poster, and this is kind of one of my inspirations for this project, is to be able to like watch a movie, look at what's existing about the movie, and then create your own interpretation of the movie. This is such a cool, like, you've got some of the characters, you've got the theme of the pirate ship and the treasure hunt, and you've got the brother, if you've seen the movie, the brother in his hoodie and his sweatpants, like riding his BMX bike down the hill. You guys will have to watch the movie if you have not seen it yet. But here we are. This is a movie that's nearly 30 years old. I should have looked up how old it is, but there's all of this stuff out there in the world to look at. And I went and searched for this last night because I knew I had this Goonies 25-year collector's box set edition that has, like, again, we're looking at the pirate theme, the treasure map theme. It's got a gold embossed crazy stuff, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff in here besides the movie, like a game and the film, and like storyboard cards where you can see like original sketches by the filmmakers on one side, which is something that you guys should be doing, and like sketching out your posters, and then like the actual footage from the scene on the other side. Again, pirate theme. It's 80s, it's cheesy, but like you can see each of these things has captured the feeling of the film. So look at this. How much fun is this? Like, it's almost like graphic novel-y, but also like treasure mappy and really cool. So you've got this opportunity this week to watch your favorite movie again, look online and see what kind of stuff is already out there, that is about your favorite movie. I have other directors and other like filmmakers that I like, and I have books of theirs like that have storyboarding and stories of how they made the movie. There's been a few of you that have talked about the Ghibli movies, and like I brought these, and maybe I'll show them at the end if any of you want to stick around, that are actually like from Japan and like about the making of the movies and showcasing like some of the characters and stuff. But this week you pick your movie, you get inspired by your movie, you look for things that visually might translate well into a poster and into what becomes your marketing material for the movie. Look and see if anybody's made a tribute website. Look and see, if there's collector's editions available, books available, things to look at, magazine articles, like I spared you guys from my obsession with Harry Potter, but there's been like whole magazines like dedicated to Harry Potter that are not like normally, they're not like it's Harry Potter magazine. It's like, Vanity Fair, and here's the Harry Potter edition of the movie. or of the magazine. So I'm really excited for this project. You guys are expected to kind of have an idea and put in, here's the movie I'm going to do, here's what I've decided. You put that in on the it's like a quiz, fill in the blank, write down what movie you're going to do. If you change your mind and it doesn't work out and you sketch and you work through some of the process and you're like, I don't want to do this movie anymore, you are absolutely not stuck with that. So don't overthink it and don't stress on that too much. Just get it done in time. And then we're at the sketches phase again. I don't want to see anything digital yet. I don't want to see anything in Illustrator yet. I want to see sketches. I wouldn't mind if the sketches included, things that you found to inspire you from online, and you just kind of paste that on your page as you're working. But mostly I want to see your sketch of what you think your poster might look like, what it might include. Same as what we did with the advertisements. Hand-drawn sketching, this is part of the creative process, and this is where I want you guys to start. I'm going to go over the project a little bit more and look at the project instruction pages. But as we're starting Illustrator this week, I want to give you a tour of Illustrator. I'm going to show you a quick video talking about the 30+ years of Illustrator and how far it's come, what it's used for, and then that'll lead us really easily into getting started next week in Illustrator with working on your posters. I'll give you, just like as we're doing a tour of Illustrator, a couple of quick tips to get you started for that. But let me share my screen again so I can show you the Illustrator video, 30 years of Illustrator. This is actually already several years old. It's still the best video that I can find on the subject, so I like to show it. It's only a minute long, so it wraps it up really quickly, but cool video. We're just going to watch this really quick and then I'll talk some more about Illustrator. So I love Illustrator. Before I get into it and show you, I want to make sure that you guys have, and I've put it into Canvas again and again, raster versus vector. Raster is what we did with Photoshop, working with pixels, working with photos, working with fuzzy edges and, masking out. And as you combined your photos to make your advertisement, you saw how those edges had just kind of a fuzzy edge that if you zoomed in really far, you'd actually see the pixels, the squares that make up that image. As we start working with vector, it's a whole different ballgame. There are no fuzzy edges unless you choose to use a filter to make them so. Vector art is very much like, and this is what I've thought since the beginning, is it just reminds me of dot to dot. You're working with placed points, and then those points are connected by a line to make a shape, and you can go crazy with detail and making illustrations that are very simple and are very advanced, but everything is created with lines and shapes and hard edges rather than pixels. So that's going to be the big difference. The tools are going to be a little bit different. There's a lot of crossover now that there didn't used to be, where now you can create some vector stuff in Photoshop. You were able to create a circle or a square and fill it with color in Photoshop, the same as you could do in Illustrator, but it's going to work. It works a lot differently, and you'll see the more that you get into it from week to week. We're going to watch a video in a minute. That's one of the ones I share in the Illustrator overview that I like to do in class with letting the video run. It's a Design Dojo basics Illustrator video, and then I have it open side by side so that I can pause and stop and give you guys a little bit more as it goes. So we're going to do that in a few minutes, but remember, you're no longer working with raster and with pixels and with photos. And so from here on out, what I want to see from you guys is vector art. Vector art is art that can be sized up as small or as big as you want. You're not restricted by the resolution issues that we faced with Photoshop, with potentially working with a photo that was didn't have enough pixels to be made as big as you wanted it to. In Illustrator, you can size things up so that they can be an app on your phone or a billboard, on the side of the freeway, just many, many feet wide. That's one of the great things about Illustrator. Illustrator is used for creating logos. It's used for creating illustrations. It's used for advertisements. Even when you're working with single page stuff, a lot of the time you bring a photo in and then you work with your type and you work with your logo and you work with shapes right over and layering on top of the photo in Illustrator. I use it to make flyers, a lot for signage, a lot for packaging, because unlike Photoshop, where you're restricted to a rectangular or a square shape, in Illustrator, you work with an artboard and then you can put any shape that you want on top of that. So it works really well for packaging that, starts off folded flat in a really crazy shape and then is cut out and folded to make a package. So I use Illustrator for packaging on a regular basis. The reason why it's the preferred software for logos, because I know many of you can create a logo in Photoshop, no problem, but then you are restricted to the size that logo is able to be used at. You are restricted by the resolution and the DPI of that Photoshop file. With Illustrator, you could put that logo on a sticker or a business card, or you could put it on the sign on the side of a building. And it's able to be sized up without losing resolution because you're working with vector instead of pixels. So I think the best way to kind of introduce you to that is just to show you guys. Every week there will be an exercise that lets you accomplish a little bit more in Illustrator. Each of those exercises is crafted not only to give you the basics of Illustrator, but because there are things that you will want to do probably in your poster. So the poster project is start to finish a 5-week project, so there is no hurry. Don't get too far ahead, or you may learn something and then want to go back and apply it to what you've already done. Take it step by step, do the exercises as they go, and then always hit me up if you want to learn something more than what's in Canvas. I think what I'm going to do is share my screen again and just take us directly into Illustrator. And then from there, I think what I will do is do the Design Dojo video, which I have open, and then do a side-by-side chair. But what I want to do first is just kind of show you how you guys can all see Illustrator now. Yeah. Okay, cool. So again, you've got this home page. It's the same as in Photoshop, where it allows you to, I have it turned off, where it'll show you previous files that you've had open. So you can jump right back in. You can start a new file, or you can open an existing file. New file is the coolest thing, because when, just like with Photoshop, it opens a new window that gives you a whole bunch of different presets as far as dimensions and settings And then it also gives you access to templates that are available through Adobe, either for free or for a fee. What I want to do is, just because you're going to be working on a poster, we are going to pretend that that poster is going to print, rather than it being a social media post or a digital advertisement or a Facebook banner. This is going to be a poster, and in the instructions you will be working with what is called tabloid size. I'm going to change my units of measurement over here on the right from points, which is the default. I'm not really sure why. I prefer inches. I don't know why it defaults to points. It's always done that. I'm going to change it to inches. Tabloid is just 11 by 17. It's basically two pieces of paper stacked on top of each other, and it's it's a booklet unfolded. So this is normally like 8.5 by 11. So tabloid is this size. It's a magazine folded in half. It is a standard size. And that's what you're going to be working for your poster. As with your advertisement, it's important that you stick with the size that is in the instructions. And then one of the things that I know we worked with artboards just briefly in Photoshop, but it's not a regular thing. When you get to Illustrator, working with artboards is a regular thing. And you can see it has it right in my little document setup thing. And I'm going to change it right away to have 3 artboards, because eventually when you're working on your poster, that's what you're going to want. You're going to have 2 working poster artboards, and then your third artboard, which is what I always do when I'm working on a design of something, is just my holding place. It's where I put fonts I'm trying out, or titles I'm trying out, or logos I'm trying out. When you do your sketches and you want to place them in your Illustrator file so you can trace them, which is something that you're going to do down the line as you get to working on your poster. It's something you can throw, on that page. It's just kind of a holding area. So I've got my tabloid, I've set it to inches, and I have 3 artboards, and I'm going to just go ahead and hit create, and you'll see what I got. So here we go. I'm going to turn the rulers on right away. It's Command R, Command or Control R in all of the software. That's how you turn the rulers on and off. I like to have the rulers on. I like to see what I'm doing. And then another thing I'm particular about is how my artboards are set up. Let me just talk about the workspace before I change that. You guys can see that it does look similar to Photoshop. The toolbar is on the left. The panels are on the right. I have this set up to one that I use all the time. So I set it as a preset. Looks like the last time I did it was last March, but you can work with, the essentials, which is what the Design Dojo is going to ask us to do in a little bit, where it gives you kind of, this is what what Adobe considers your essentials. You've got your toolbar on the left with a certain number of tools, and then you've got your properties panel, which is super helpful. It's kind of an all-in-one. It's your character panel, your transform panel, all in one panel, and then just like a few others that they consider essential. Your libraries that you created in Photoshop are going to show up in Illustrator, so that you could, if you wanted to, pull one of your photos and put it into your poster and trace it. Don't mistake me saying that for meaning that your final poster should have any photos in it. It should not. It should be 100% vector, just as your advertisement had to be photos. This has to be vector, but tracing a photo is part of this process, and we'll get to that later. But all the libraries like that I've ever created under this Adobe ID show up in Illustrator, just as they did in Photoshop. So that's one of the cool things about libraries. I'm going to switch it back to my workspace. Tools on the left, panels on the right, your control bar at the top. One thing you'll notice right away different about the control bar at the top, it does not change quite the same as it did when you were in Photoshop, where it changed with every tool. It changes more depending on what you've selected on your artboard. Right now, I don't have anything selected, so it's kind of just sticking with the default. But let's say I had a square, you can see now it is giving me all kinds of different options and tools for dealing with this square. That's one of the differences between Illustrator and Photoshop as far as the workspace. The control bar operates a little bit differently and doesn't necessarily give you more functionality for the tool like it did in Photoshop. If, however, you double click on the tool, you will get a pop-up window that gives you more control over the tool. So that's like a little secret thing that that it's not readily available. Again, if you just like Photoshop, if you mouse over the tool, it will give you a little bit more information about the tool. I love how integrated all the tutorials are in all of the Adobe softwares. All you have to do is click on Learn More, and it will take you to the website to a tutorial about whatever you're hovering over or whatever you want to learn more about. I think I'm going to fix my artboards because it drives me crazy when they're like not lined up the way I want them to. There is actually an artboard tool that is, it looks like a little page on the toolbar. I'm going to select that and rearrange my artboards because I like them a certain way. I'm super, super particular about having everything line up, using my rulers to align stuff on the X and the Y axis at intervals that make sense, because then when I work on the art within that artboard, it's really easy for me to find the middle of the page or one in from the page. I think it's really important to utilize the rulers and to use, I mean, we're working with a computer here, so they can do so much for you. Okay, so this is what you're going to end up with when you start working in Illustrator for your movie poster project. You're going to have 2 pages or 2 artboards that are for your movie poster, and then one that's like a catch-all where you can like put logos that maybe you decide you want to use. You can start messing with color. You can start working with typefaces. Let's, just put a giant, movie title on here, and then if you just select it and click and drag holding down Option, you can copy it. And then Adobe does a really good job of giving you a preview of all of the different fonts, and this is going to show you fonts that are turned on your computer, on your machine. These are going to show you fonts that are available to you to use. So this is somewhere where I recommend like playing with title treatments, playing with fonts. Later, we're going to get into some of the effects that are available in Illustrator, and you can play with those as well. As you work with effects, as you work with filters, it's going to make your file bigger and bigger. So make sure you're saving as you go. Make sure that you're backing your work up somewhere, like copying it to the cloud or to an external hard drive, because these files, I know some of you already know this from Photoshop, get really big, and I don't want you to lose your work. As we're working over a 5-week period, that's a lot of time for things to go wrong. So make sure you're saving, make sure you're backing up your files, so if something does go wrong, you can go and grab a previous version and not have to start over from scratch. Layers is another thing. I had mentioned this in Photoshop. When you add a layer in Photoshop, it builds on top of one another. And it does the same thing now in Illustrator. It didn't used to. So this is going to be something that's going to be really helpful when you're starting to draw and you're starting to create in Illustrator. If you were to paste your photo in here or your sketch that we work on this week, which is something I'll show you next week, how we'll place it in there, and you're going to draw over it, you're going to use the layers. So I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm super excited about this project, but I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the side by side with the Ninja so that he can lead us through the very, very basics. And I will jump in and pause the video as I go, because there are a few times where I want to give you a little bit extra. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what he's saying. So let me see if I can, what do you think? That's too small. I want to make it so that we can see it without, we can see them both at the same time.
That's the first step.
I think I'll just crop in. How about that? Okay. Y'all can see the video and then you can see Illustrator too, right? It's kind of a lot going on one screen, but let's see what I can do here. I'm gonna just follow along. And what I encourage you guys to do, if it's ever like in your, in the time that you have, is to do these, go in and if there's something that's not making sense to you, go back in and do these, because he gives you both the Adobe website and Design Dojo gives you a downloadable file to start with, which is fantastic for following along with the tutorials. But I always encourage you to watch the tutorial through once first, because it's too much. There's just too much to look at and try to follow along with if you do it all, if you try to do it at the same time as watching it for the first time. I wish I could make this. How do I make it? Oh, pop it out. Is this it? Here we go. Yes, I am a genius. Okay, so we got this. All right, here we go.
Let's set up Illustrator's workspace to show just the essentials by cruising right up here to the workspace options and selecting Essentials. This will put the Tools panel on the left side and the ever so useful Properties panel on the right. Okay, let's begin your ascent of Mount Vector, starting at level 1, where we learn about navigation in Illustrator. Just hold down the spacebar to access the hand tool and drag your mouse to move up, down, left, or right. Once you've got the hang of it,
Okay, you all remember that from
head on up
Photoshop.
to level 2.
Same thing to scroll all around. One thing that I was going to say about the panels, they are also under window, just like in Photoshop, in alphabetical order. So in the instructions for some of the tutorials that you do, if they're talking about a panel and you can't find it here on the right, and for some reason, like it's not making sense what the instructor's talking about, go under Windows and open up the panel. And then you can always dock it yourself. It'll pop up as a separate panel, just floating, and then you'll have to like drag it and put it over into dock it to your workspace.
There are a ton of ways to zoom in Illustrator, but since you just learned how to use the spacebar to get the hand tool, it might be easiest to use spacebar plus command to zoom in and out. Do note that you do need to press spacebar then command, because command then spacebar brings up the spotlight search on a Mac. All right, move right over this mysterious red dot and hold down the spacebar and command, and then drag to the right to zoom on in. And behold, one of the big secrets of vector graphics revealed. That is, vector graphics never get pixelated. Okay, to zoom back out, try out the spacebar and command combo again. But this time,
Okay, so you see how this is pixelated? That's because this is not vector. This is a rasterized version of his little guy placed into Illustrator. So it is essentially a photo. It's an illustration that was created or brought into Photoshop at some time and then placed into this Illustrator document. So this circle and this font are vector. This guy is not. So can you see the difference? I'm zoomed in right now to 10,971%. And I've got a perfectly, straight edge on the circle and on the fonts, whereas the Ninja is getting a little bit pixelated. So you can see here on the signage that is created, I'm zooming in, I'm now at 38,000% and no pixels, no loss of clarity or sharpness. Does that make sense? And also just to note, he is giving key commands for zooming in and out on a Mac. I think control spacebar will work on a PC for zooming in and out. But it should also tell you under view, zoom in and out, it has what the key commands are. And then there is that zoom tool that you can learn more about in the toolbar. So let's see, go to where I left.
Drag to the left to zoom out. Great. Now, if getting the whole document to center nicely is a bit tricky, try out one more keyboard shortcut, Command-0, to fit the document perfectly on your screen. Okay, when you're ready, zoom on in to level 3. Level 3 introduces the concept of selecting. Press V to get the black arrow and click on the dragon's tail. Notice there's now a blue line running down the middle. This line is a vector path. And once you've selected a vector,
Do you see how it looks like dot to dot? Can you guys see these anchor points? They're called anchor points. Those are the dots, and it's a line. It's just, the line is connecting the dots, and it's making the shape of the dragon's body and the tail. And ever since the beginning, and I never hear anybody describe it like this, but Illustrator has reminded me of dot to dot.
path, you can do pretty much anything to it. For starters, let's change the stroke weight and its color. Over here in the properties panel, you see a value of 22. This is the stroke's weight. If you click the arrow or select from the drop-down list, or probably easiest of all, scroll up and down in this area, you'll see the tail get wider or thinner. As for color, if you move just to the left over this gold square, that is the stroke color. Click on this square and you'll see the basic RGB color palette that you can use to change the color of the tail. All right, now that you understand about stroke, pan on up to level 4 to learn about the fill. Okay, every vector path has both a stroke and a fill. Stroke is pretty intuitive because it's how we draw.
This takes the place of, in Photoshop, it was your foreground and your background color in your toolbar. This, in your toolbar, it is now your fill and your stroke. It's in the very same place on the toolbar. It looks very similar with two little boxes overlapping each other. But now, instead of foreground and background, we're working with fill and stroke.
But fill can be a little tricky at first. Just imagine that you can fill in a shape with any color or gradient or pattern you want, and that is the fill. And if you don't want to fill, that's an option too. Just select the path and press the / tool to choose no fill. Notice how the fill in the properties panel now has a red diagonal line. This red diagonal line is Adobe speak for none. So in this case, it means no fill. All right, now that you understand stroke and fill, let's slide on up to level 5 and do some transforming. All right, so the black arrow not only selects paths that you want to change, it is your one-stop shop for transforming. Let's prove it by breaking these boards. First, select the hand and then click one of the corners of this bounding box. And notice that by default, the object will scale or transform freely and things can get pretty weird. So to lock proportions, be sure to hold down Shift or Shift and Option to lock and scale from the center so that the shape stays proportional. Once you feel like the hand is big enough, use the black arrow to move it by simply dragging down. All right, now click on the board and notice it's actually 2 objects. To rotate these objects, just select one and move just outside the corner of the bounding box, and you'll see a rotate icon. Notice that if you hold down Shift while you're rotating, it will snap to 45-degree increments. All right, the black arrow has one more secret. Hold down Shift and click both boards. And then if you hold down Option and drag, notice that the black arrow is also a copying tool. But some transformations require real precision. Pan on over to level 6 and let's try out some transform options in the properties panel. Okay, if you need to move, scale, or rotate in some exact way, the properties panel allows you to type in exact values and even do basic math functions to be very precise. The properties panel also offers the easiest way to reflect objects. So click this icon to flip the ninja the other way. Whew, that was close. And when you're ready, pan on up to level 7 and brace yourself for the ferocious bunny. Level 7 will teach you about the white arrow, but before we bust out that tool, let's zoom way in on the bunny's face using spacebar command, and now press the A key to get the white arrow. First, use the white arrow to click the corners of her nose, and notice that the path now has 3 tiny squares on each corner. These squares are anchor points, corner anchor points to be exact. And if you click one, notice that it turns blue to show that it's selected. And when it's selected, you can drag them around all day long and change the shape. All right, now select the bunny's mouth and notice that these anchor points are a bit different because they have lines that stick out with a white circle attached. These are curve anchor points, which have handles that allow you to change not only the position, but the curve of the point as well. All right, try dragging both the points and the handles around to see.
Okay, you guys, this is it. Like, this is the basics of drawing in Illustrator. It's anchor points and creating either corner anchors where you have like a pointed, whether it's a square or whatever it is, you've got a pointed shape, a pointed, edge, or you're working with anchor points that have the handle to turn it into a curve. This is how you're going to create your illustrations. This is it for Illustrator. This is how people create fonts. It's how people create icons for logos. It is how it's done in Illustrator. This is like the nitty-gritty of it. This is the basic, the most basic and most important tool. It is also not easy to master. And so I want to make sure that you guys give yourselves a lot of patience and you take your time with this. Illustrator gives you a lot of preset shapes to work with, but then you have the pen tool and the variations of the pen tool that allow you to create custom shapes. And this is what you're going to be working with to create your illustrations and to create your poster. But it takes practice, and you're going to get tutorials that allow you to practice it, like actually have you tracing objects and tracing shapes and working with fills and strokes and colors and gradients and all of that stuff. So you're going to get practice, but it is a lot different than working with a paintbrush and going around the edge of something. So I want to make sure that you get this. He touches on it so quickly: anchor points, curved anchors, and corner anchors. And that's like, I mean, those are the building blocks of working in Illustrator. I'm working with
change the bunny's mood. Very nice. If you got this far, it looks like you are all set and have rightly earned your white belt. So use the spacebar to pan on up to the design dojo and follow the instructions on the door to reveal.
Oh, not going to tell us what it's going to reveal, and I can't remember. So I've got my black arrow tool, my selection tool. Let me zoom out a little bit. I'm going to select the doors. You can tell they're selected because you see this blue outline. Depending on your layer, once you start working with layers on your illustration, you can actually change the color that those lines are. Let's say you're working with a poster that has a lot of sky, and all the shapes that you draw are blending into the background of the sky, and you can't tell when you have stuff selected and not or not. You can actually change the color of your layer just by double clicking on it. Come on. In the layer panel, and it'll come up with some layer options, and you can change the color of that layer so that when you select something, it's a different color. That's a little tip that's going to be helpful when you get to drawing and customizing. You may have like a dozen layers that you're working with, and they're all in these different colors. You may have one that's yellow and you're working with something beachy and the sand is yellow, and every time you select the bucket you've drawn, you can't see if it's selected or not. Just change the color of the layer to whatever you want so that you can see it. So to enter, press V. I've selected V for my black arrow tool. Select the doors and press Command 3. Ta-da! So that's it for this tutorial. he has another one after this. I super recommend like going through them. They're really fun. They're really basic. And if you've not worked in Illustrator before, they give you a good introduction to everything that we're going to be doing. Let's see, there's a question with Illustrator. Are we allowed to add in PNGs? Okay, so you can add a PNG in to trace, but your final poster has to be 100% vector. I'm going to show you some examples, student examples, like I did before in the advertisements, of students that were new to Illustrator or had minimal Illustrator skills going in. And then this is what they came up with by the end of the 5 weeks, after working through their tutorials, after you know, coming to the Zooms and getting feedback and just really progressing in Illustrator. Let me, before I do that, I want to just take a look at Canvas with you guys at, let me do this. I'm going to bring this over here so I can share my whole desktop. I am going to share. Okay, so because this project spans the whole 5 weeks that we're in Illustrator, you're going to see Illustrator project as like a header in each week's module. And then there will be the project instructions every week. And then there will be a submission page every week. Similar to what we did with the advertisement in our Photoshop project. I went ahead and made sure to put what week we were in, both in the title of the page and in the instructions, so that you will see when you're looking at the checklist. This week, poster sketches are due. It's week 9. Next week, for week 10 and week 11, this week, that your peer review is going to go a little bit longer for this next time. It's going to be, you upload your work in progress posters and then have a week to get and receive peer reviews. And then from then you will have 2 weeks to complete your poster. Illustrator is notoriously tedious. It takes a long time to work in Illustrator, to master the pen tool, to get Illustrator to bend to your will and get what's in your head onto that artboard. So every week you're going to see the instructions page. It's going to be virtually the same from week to week, same instructions, and then the what's due will change. And so the submission page will look a little bit different. Make sure that you're submitting the right part of the design process to the right week. For instance, this week your sketches are due. Next week it's your work in progress, and don't accidentally, you know, submit your work in progress this week and your sketches next week. All the instructions that you need are here. Again, you have the tabs to go through. Project review page is the same as it was for the Photoshop ad, with different dates, just making sure that you know how to do the peer review. Make sure that you do your peer review on the week 10 and 11 submission page, rather than in the discussion board. The discussion board is the casual space for sharing your ideas. This peer review is your formal part of the class to give feedback to your classmates. The project goals are here, along with the point breakdown that you'll earn every week, materials that you would need, and then the final project checklist. Again, put this on your calendar, write a to-do list, stick it on Post-its in your sketchbook so that you make sure you don't miss these deadlines. They happen over the 5-week period. You will see this in bold at the top of each of the same instructions page. Vector art, no photos, no raster art. If you need a refresher on the difference between vector and raster, I've linked us to the concepts and terms page from week 2 or 3 that talked about the difference between vector and raster, because I don't want to see any photos. I want to see 100% vector work. So any questions so far? Let me look here in the chat. Ryan, yes. Absolutely. Okay, so let me show you guys some samples. These are from previous students. This is student work from previous years of teaching this class. These are mostly students who have not worked in Illustrator before and use techniques that they learned week after week of being in this class and of following along with the tutorials that were given in this class. So, and they came out fantastic. Everything is going to be vector. You're going to see vector work, but what Abraj, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. You and I will talk about that later. I know I've asked and I keep missing you, but he has asked if we can have PNGs in the poster, which is PNG is a format that you save out of Photoshop. It is raster art, and the answer is no. You may place a PNG into your work in progress to trace it, to create vector art from it. Spirited Away, these are, Ryan, like you were asking, these are elements from the movie, character representations from the movie. Cinderella. Type solution, you guys are going to work with fonts. A lot of students will use Google Images to find a reference photo that they want to use to trace, like the shape of a horse or the shape of a carriage, but then that all goes away when you turn in your final. This came out so good. This was a student who had almost no computer experience whatsoever, and it was his first time on a Macintosh. He was a something like high up in the military working with military computers, so he had computer knowledge but no like real creative or creation experience, and his poster came out so good. And you can tell like the feel of the movie. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Fight Club, but it's like, it's got this kind of like stark, like highly like contrasty, you know, violent and just kind of aggressive feel to it. And I think he did a good job of capturing that in his poster. We have a tutorial coming up on creating gradients and working with creating shapes with gradients, and he created his bar of soap using that, and it just kind of blew me away. And here's a really simple solution, but the student used a photo of Scarlett Johansson to kind of trace some of her features and kind of capture her without too much detail, but I think it came out fantastic, and it's definitely representation of her. Hunger Games, Interstellar, like this student, I have him in here. He shouldn't be in here, but Victoria, I think you were asking earlier, this is from my Illustrator class. This was just from the advanced Illustrator class, same project, starting with sketches, and then all of this can be created in Illustrator. It's just shapes, individual shapes. This one I love. I think she did such a good job. Just a really, I like this better than the actual poster and marketing material for the movie. This student was like so worried that her poster was not going to turn out good, or that it wasn't going to look like what it was supposed to look like. And we did a lot of talking about and searching. I sent her an article on fonts for video games and fonts, like retro fonts, and she had a little bit of fun playing with that. But she spent a ton of time with the pencil tool creating the shapes to make Kong, and or I don't know, in Rampage, is it King Kong in Rampage? I don't know. And Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. But I think it came out so good. This is another student who had never used Illustrator before. So fantastic movie, great poster, really super simple. She drew one shape, but she made a fantastic poster out of it, of that one shape. Her type solutions work well. She's got hierarchy. You can see how color has created like some drama to the poster. And then she created one shape and then copied it and worked with proportion and worked with layering and worked with some transparency in order to create the concept for her Inception poster. This one was another student that was having a lot of like worry and trouble that she didn't know what she was doing, and hers came out so good. One of the reasons I like to share this particular poster, aside from all of the vector shapes that you can see, you know, roughly created with the pen tool, but it works well being rough, even though like her jawline is not totally perfect. She used the brush tool, and you'll see Illustrator has a whole bunch of different patterns and brush tools that you can apply strokes. Like she applied a preset stroke brush tool to the outside of the mask to give it this like frilly look, and I think it came out fantastic. I mean, those tools can sometimes be like ridiculous. Like you can have a circle smiley face shape with a stroke of like smiley faces, you know, like something really super campy and silly, or you can use it like to great effect and create a design that works really well. So, you know, really good job. And then this last one, Superman, we can all agree like there's a little bit of, it needs a little bit of work as far as like how well you can read the headline or how long the headline is. It's a little bit hard to read, but again, like the vector work and the accomplishment of going from not knowing how to work in Illustrator to working in Illustrator is definitely worth putting it in this remarkable poster category. As you can see in all of these, no photos. It's 100% vector work. There's the use of some filters here and there to give some texture, or you can see like some shadowing in some of these, but this is 100% vector work. These posters could be printed on the size of a building and not lose any of the resolution. So it's a fun project. We're going to be learning a ton in the next 5 weeks. I encourage you guys all to come to these Zooms, watch these Zooms, send me your questions. If you can't make a Zoom and you want to see how to do something, send me a question in advance so I can demo it and have it recorded for you so that you can watch it later. My office hours every week, 3:30 on Wednesdays, I will help you there. Or if you can't make that time, message me. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get help. I am on my computer, as you all know, all the time. So I will fit you in and we will get your questions answered. It's going to be fun. I know I keep saying that, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to play, I have in our module this week, the very last assignment of the week is a reading assignment about the creation of logos. And I want to make sure it doesn't go unnoticed that on that particular logo quiz page, if you scroll down, there is some extra stuff about logos on that page, some links to, what do you call it? Some, an article, Behance's like logo page, and then also one of the accounts that I follow on Instagram that's always posting cool branding stuff. I could like keep you guys here for 2 hours showing you logo stuff, but I'm gonna cut you loose. I'll stick around for questions, and while you guys are filing out, you can stick around and watch this logo rebranding video that is from 2 years ago. I was hoping he was going to post these more often, and he doesn't, but they're super fun. So you guys are dismissed, or stick around and watch the video, and I will see you next week.
So Rebrand Gang, we're doing something a little bit different today, which is called This Month in Logos. And basically I'm going to look at all of the logo news over the last month that's taken the design world by storm. And even though it's only January, there's already been a lot of like beginning of year, new logos, updated logos, and all the controversy that goes with it. So yeah, let's get into this. So Sony had a conference to talk about the PS5 and then ended up releasing a logo and just a logo, which has been absolutely annihilated on Twitter for looking pretty much exactly the same as the PS4 logo.
I'm pleased to share with you today, for the first time, our new logo.
And that's probably my favorite meme that's come out of all of this, but there have been loads of memes that have come out of all of this. So many memes. That's probably the best part when a big company has a new logo, all the brilliant memes that come along with it. In terms of the actual logo, it's exactly what was expected, which is actually exactly what the CEO wanted, brand consistency. If the PS4 had flopped, I think it would have been a different story and they probably would have gone for a completely different logo. But because that has been like one of the top consoles for the last few years, I mean, why would you just snip that off and all that brand recognition that you've built? Why would you get rid of that? So I guess that makes perfect sense to just swap that 4 for a 5. I'm also going to do a little poll for each of these logos so that we know what the rebrand gang thinks of them. So next up, it was Gucci, who have also made the news for their logo. They have changed their logo from this to this. Yes, really. The new logo looks like a handwriting straight out of an exercise book from school, and they haven't even live traced it to clean it up. Don't worry too much, as it's only a temporary change to the logo. By changing to this logo, they're being very disruptive and outlandish, as the logo is pretty awful to look at. So obviously, I'm not too keen on the look of the logo, and I'm not sure that anyone would be really. But I think it's done the exact job that they needed to. It doesn't really matter what I think. It's made the news, so it can only be seen as a win for the marketing team. So midway through the month, GoDaddy got a new logo, and that made the news. And saw a lot about that on Twitter and Instagram as well, as they had this absolute classic of a logo. It was easy to forget just how old GoDaddy's logo was looking until our memories have been sparked this month with a complete redesign of the GoDaddy brand. They've gone from this absolute masterpiece of 90s internet straight to the 2020 simplified style logo, which at least makes them look and feel more like a serious business. So obviously the icon looks like a heart shape to make sure their customers feel loved at all times. And also it apparently spells out the word go. And I think what they mean by that is the G is there and the O is there, but it's kind of a little bit confusing to my eyes. I think it's definitely an improvement on the old logo, which was kind of ridiculous, but kind of really outstanding in its own way. With the word mark is great. I like the way the G also looks like an arrow. However, I don't really find the icon very eye-pleasing. It seems to be like a mix of weights between the icon and the text. I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong with it, but something's just annoying my eyes with it. So I would have preferred to see the simplification go a step further and be confident enough to use the word mark alone. So another logo that got updated earlier this month was Fisher-Price, and their logo has gone from this to now looking like this. So you'll notice that they've dropped the capital letters, which makes the text look more rounded and less likely to hurt a child, maybe take their eye out, something like that. And they've also changed from 4 rounded sections on the bottom to 3, which is to symbolize the 3 founders of the company. And I only know this because they made this really cool brand identity reveal video. That's enough of that, you get the idea. But I thought that first bit was really cool, where it shows the old logo morphing into the new logo. That's a really cool effect. Well cool. And then did you notice the little ball, like the 4th ball that they've removed from the bottom there, like gets bumped out the side? Well cool, bit of animation. I'll put the link to this webpage in my description. This is probably my favorite redesign of this month. The cool thing about this logo is that the majority of people never even notice. It's a modernization that will cause no recognition problems for the brand, and consumers will still feel safe buying the products from that trusted brand. So the last logo that we're going to look at today is the United States Space Force logo, which has made the news basically because it looks like the Star Trek logo, as you can see here. And you can see some obvious similarities here. The fact it's got stars, it's got this little swoosh, and it's got this rocket or whatever it is. But to be honest, where the colours are so different and the general art style is so different and the fonts are so different, I mean, obviously there's similarities, but it doesn't look like a complete rip-off, even though maybe it is, I'm not sure. But it looks like on its own, if you just ignore this one, looks like quite fitting on what you'd expect from a Space Force logo, so I think it's all right. Maybe I would feel differently if I actually watched Star Trek or something like that and was more ingrained into that whole culture. but it looks fine to me. Okay, so that's it for this month in logos, January 2020.
I wish he had continued and did these like every month, because I love that video and I love how he gives a little bit of history and says what he thinks, and he does it so well. He has a whole YouTube channel where he will look at individual brands. And so there's like a whole bunch of them. Like you can go on there and watch those to your heart's content. It's a lot of fun. But thank you guys. I'm really excited to see what you guys do in Illustrator. And again, doors always open. Just let me know if you need me. All right. Have a great week.